Congressman Paul Ryan, ranking member of the Budget Committee, on the front lines of this ongoing battle. This one's going to be a fun one. Congressman, welcome back to the show.
Morning, Carl, Joe, and Fred. How are you guys doing today?
We're pretty good. Hey, the CBO has already told the administration some of their deficit projections are a little bit too rosy. Steny Hoyer says the votes are going to be tough. Ben Nelson says we got to rework this thing. Evan Bayh, Ken Conrad, it seems like the Democrats are doing all of your criticizing for you.
Well, the reworking they're doing is simply camouflaging the budget. They gave us the budget late last night. It is basically the same Obama budget. They've camouflaged it with a bunch of reserve funds. This budget still paves the way for cap and trade. This budget still paves the way for national health care. This budget still gives us the largest debt increase in history, more than all prior 43 presidents combined. And this budget still paves the way for these enormous tax increases on our economy. If we had the largest tax increase in history, the largest borrowing, the largest spending increases in history, we still won't grow. That's the point we're trying to make. And so they're trying to camouflage this budget so guys like you just mentioned will feel more comfortable voting for it, so that you'll report that this is not the same Obama budget, when in actuality this is the Obama budget with just some better camouflage and some better smoke and mirrors.
All right. So despite all that intra-party criticism of the version the president put forward, that's not going to preclude you and your party from offering an alternative.
That's correct. They're offering the same thing as the Obama budget, just with some more bells and whistles, some more camouflage. We will, and we've always said we would, offer a very principled alternative next week when we get to the floor, when the time comes to offer budget alternatives.
What's it going to look like? What's going to be? What are the largest differences going to be in terms of their swing for the fences initiatives? What will be gone?
Largest difference is we're not going to do cap and trade. We're not going to do any tax increases. We're going to have more pro-growth tax reform to get our economy growing, and we're going to get our debt under control. We're going to tackle the tough issue of reforming entitlements, of getting our budget under wraps, of enforcing budgetary discipline, and getting our borrowing situation under control. I am really, sincerely very concerned that if we have the kind of debt increases that they're talking about, doubling it in 5 years, tripling it in 10 years, more than Washington and George W. Bush added to the debt, that's going to screw up our currency, it's going to screw up our monetary policy, and it's going to give my kids a much worse future. We're not going to play that game. We're not going to do that. We're going to go in a completely different direction and show the American people how we would do things much, much differently to restore growth and confidence to our economy, keep the American economy growing, and not switch over to a Europeanized type of an economy.
Paul, that gives me a lot of confidence, what you just said, and I think you're absolutely going in the right direction. You had a great column a couple of weeks ago in one of the major dailies on this subject. But talk about inflation. What's going to happen with inflation with this kind of budget 4 or 5 years down the pike? And the second question really is, can you really make it? Can you really get something through along the lines of what you're talking about?
Well, we can't pass to be candid with you, Fred, we're not going to be able to pass it, excuse me, because we're in the minority.
Yep.
But at least we can say, here's who we are and how we would do things differently, and we can tell the truth of what this budget does. We are going to have an inflation problem. Look, clearly we have a deflation problem, and the Fed is throwing everything at it. They're buying long-term Treasury securities now. They're monetizing that stuff. And so what this new borrowing slew is going to do, instead of tackling our debts, instead of reforming entitlements, they're exploding our debt. And now that the Fed's already buying long-term treasuries, they're going to keep doing that. They're not going to be able to mop up all this excess liquidity. Money supply is up. Velocity is down. Once this stuff flushes through the system, you're going to have an inflation problem. And I don't know of any Federal Reserve chairman in history who's ever been able to time all this stuff right. And the fact that Congress is mirroring our fiscal policy with our monetary policy, merging it, that's going to give us a huge inflation problem on the backside.
Well, look, you said that you don't think you can get it done because you're in the minority. So what are we going to achieve here?
So here's the deal. I can't pass our budget, but the question is, will those blue dog Democrats go along with this?
Yeah.
Will those Evan Bayhs of the world, those Jim Coopers of the world, help make this happen? There are enough blue dogs in the House, and there are enough blue dogs in the Senate to stop this from happening. The question is, are they willing to do that, or are they going to march in lockstep?
To stop which parts of that? That's what I want to know, Congressman. Do you get any...
This entire budget. To stop this entire budget and go back to scratch.
But when we finally do get a budget, which someday we will get, when you have friends on the other side, well, what do you think is likely for them to say, if we get this, then we won't have to get that? I mean, is there going to be any compromise on health care? That seems like something that the president ran on. He's got a high approval rating.
Right.
He's going to push for that. Do you get the idea that maybe it's cap and trade that falls by the wayside and that they finally give up on? Do you think that maybe all the tax increases that are in there right now, maybe some of those don't fly? Where's the compromise going to be when we finally see the final budget?
If you defeat this budget, then you get to compromising. Right now, they're trying to ram all this stuff through without any compromises. If we defeat this, then we get to the point you're talking about compromising. I think we can kill cap and trade, but they're trying to ram it through right now. Probably and they're putting reconciliation on this stuff in the House, meaning you can't filibuster that stuff. I think we should get a health care compromise, but let's not have a government-run option that becomes a government-run monopoly. We want health care reform, too. You can't have universal health insurance coverage without having the government run it. The tax increases, I just don't think they're going to compromise on that. Just to be candid, I'm on Ways and Means as well. These guys they're going to run through these tax increases, and I think they'll always have the vote for that. So I think the tax increases are going to happen. I'd like to think we can defeat cap and trade. They're still trying to run it through. And on health care, let's not have a government takeover of 17% of our economy. Let's fix the system, bring the market back into it, and have a patient-centered, doctor-patient relationship-controlled kind of healthcare system. That's what we want.
Makes a lot of sense, but I hope you can do something with the taxes other than what they're doing.
Speaking of taxes, Congressman, we had Majority Whip Clyburn on the show the other day. We asked him about this AIG bonus tax. The takeaway was that we kind of figured this thing wouldn't fly in the courts, but we did it anyway. Why did you join?
Because we wanted to make 2 points. And look, this is a despicable event. We wanted to say to those people who want crony capitalism, who think that industrial policy is okay, that you can get a big established firm, can get in bed with the government, get preferential treatment to beat their competitors, think again. The other thing was the Democrats set this vote up so that they could vote for it, and then we Republicans would defeat it and spare you of seeing what they're actually like. And we decided, you know what? We think the American people ought to see what these leaders in Congress are all about. You ought to see what these people have in store for you, so it's better that you learn it now rather than later.
We saw it again yesterday. Whenever they have the cameras, we get to see it, Congressman.
Congressman, we got to run. Durables coming up. Thanks for the time.
All right, guys.
As we said, Durables coming up after a short break.